Hello and welcome to the show, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Cajun Knight Live. I am your host, the Cajun Knight, Jacob Mook. We got some things we're going to be talking about this evening. We're going to start off with SpaceX and how it's about to absolutely tank the United States economy, like to an unrepairable level, some are saying. Then we're going to be jumping into how the Trump administration is going to loan $17 billion to speed the deployment of 10 big nuclear reactors inside the United States. We're also going to be talking about a possible psychic that got a vision, and we're going to talk about the World Cup and aliens. Yes, you heard that right. Also, the IAEA is confirming that Iran's nuclear inspections are going to go down. We'll see how that actually shakes out. We also will be talking about a massive $27 million hospice fraud that's been revealed in and around LA. I know, hold your shocks and alls. And then also, as of time of recording, there have been 3 massive earthquakes around the same, within 30 minutes of each other in Venezuela, California, and Japan. We are going to be talking about that as well. And then while we're in the Asian area talking about Japan, we're also going to be talking about the North Korean soldier that just defected. And, well, he crossed the border and his hopes were to defect to South Korea. Some are saying possibly make his way to the United States on some Naomi Park shit. I don't know, but we're going to be talking about it. Before we get into it, I'll give the shameless plug for any of the listeners that would like to be a part of the conversation every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central. Go to the link in the description below to Cajun Knight at patreon.com or patreon.com/Cajun Knight. You know what I'm saying. The link's in the description. It's the only place to come to this show and get them absolutely commercial free, as I do. I don't need to use the voice, but it's also just becoming its own independent group. We're just meeting up every Wednesday weeknight, 9 p.m. Central, to discuss the things that we find important that are going on around the world. So, without further ado, just curious, if anybody wants to chime in on this, I would love to hear y'all's opinions. Tony is not here right now, which I wish he was, because we're going to be talking about stocks over here, and he actually does some trading. I don't know if anybody else in this group does trading or anything, but I don't know if y'all have heard or not, but SpaceX is about to become, or is in the process, or in the early days of becoming a publicly traded company. So inherently that's not a necessarily bad thing. However, they just evaluated them at being the most, if not one of the most valuable companies on Earth with I think it was like a $1.7 trillion valuation. We're going to read about it here in a moment. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, that sounds good. If, you can invest now, it'll grow. Thank God Tony is here, because you'll be able to chime in on some of this, Tony. We're talking about how SpaceX is going to bankrupt the American economy. So, okay. And
I bought one share of SpaceX today.
Look at you. I'm so glad you got here, man. I was worried because I'm giving the rundown of what I understand to be the case, and I would love to hear your rebuttal before we read the article and things. So, long story short, SpaceX, it's going public. Great. The problem is the evaluation that they just got, right? 1.7 trillion or something. I got it on the article. We'll read it in a second. It's not necessarily important right now, but it will make it one of the most, if not the most valuable companies on planet Earth, or at least that's what it's projected to be. That's the estimate. The problem is this company loses money. Like $40 billion a year gets lost. Now, SpaceX itself is a combination of the rocket program as well as the AI program. And they make some money on the rockets because of government contracts and things, but they lose so much money on their AI and they lose so much money in their other investments, to where essentially SpaceX, which is now the number one, give or take, company on Earth, net loss every year. Some are estimating 40 billion. Now, I've got some articles that it might even give a little more clarification of what I'm saying here. The problem that I'm seeing is that this evaluation will affect the S&P 500, which in turn, everybody's portfolios and 401ks and all that shit is inherently wrapped in with the S&P 500. And if this company shifts that too far and then collapses, which is expected, because anytime, I think it's like 98% of the time, every company that gets publicly traded skyrockets in evaluation and then fucking plummets right after. And then it'll take a couple years and then it kind of finds its even out phase and then it goes ebbs and flows with the stocks. Am I about accurate thus far, Tony?
Yeah, I think so. I don't actually have a very strong opinion about it. I just saw it go way up and then come way down, and I thought, okay, now is a better time than yesterday.
Fair. But if, and again, I'm not saying this is a fact. I've heard a couple of different financial analysts. There are some people that are super pro SpaceX going public, and certain ones that are like, yeah, this is going to look horrible in about 5 years. They're already saying that this will lead to such an economic collapse that it will make the housing bubble collapse look like child's play.
Uh-huh. And
I don't
AI
know.
companies too, maybe. Also, we talked about Plan Indinia yesterday. I tried looking more into it. I could not find any solid evidence that it's real. So
Okay.
I'll mention that today.
Okay. We plan Indinia. Help me remember here. It's been a
That's
weird name.
the idea that Jews are going to colonize Patagonia and they
Oh
burn
God.
down all the forests.
Yeah. Yeah, Royce, our resident Jewish correspondent from the cult, you missed a barn burner last night. The Jews were getting blamed left, right, and center. It was absolutely fucking wild.
Always.
Oh yeah,
I
man.
mean, what else is new?
I'm gonna need y'all to quit controlling the weather though. I'm about tired of this fucking rain, Royce. You got to talk to your guys. Talk to your rabbi's rabbi or something. This is bullshit.
So I will pray to God. By the way, speak interestingly enough, you say that. There is a part in the Shemona Esrei, the main focal point where the Jews pray 3 times a day, where we actually mention rain and dew, etc. And there is a summer portion and there is a winter portion. Like you don't want rains in certain times, etc.
Yeah.
Um, we do not start praying for rain up until after Sukkot or Sukkot, which is the festival of booths, because why would we pray that the rain starts during that point in time? We actually believe it is a bad omen if there's rain and stuff to where you can't sit in the sukkah to fulfill the commandment of.
See, that's
So
kind of
we actually
crazy. Culturally speaking, in Louisiana, when the rain starts, it's time to start drinking. We call them hurricane parties. Like that is an inherent part of the culture because like you can't leave, you can't go nowhere. Power's going to be shut off soon. Might as well pop you a solid 12 pack and just fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin the shit.
right. But think of way back in the day, right? Like the whole
Yeah,
harvest and things to where like also you would travel to and from the land of Israel.
yeah,
So you also wouldn't want it to be overly shitty weather during that point in time. But yeah,
that's fair.
it's an interesting thing.
No doubt. So, all right, cutting back to the SpaceX conversation. Now, y'all know I am not particularly well versed in the stock market and how these things go, but the analysis from these people, and I'm not saying that it's absolutely going to, bankrupt the United States economy. I'm saying I could, in fact, envision a chain of events to where that could be the outcome. That's where I'm at with it as of this moment. I don't know. Tony, you say you haven't really looked too much into the SpaceX situation?
Um, no, not a lot because I just think there is a good chance it'll go back up and nobody knows, and the stock market already prices all this stuff in.
That's
They're
fair.
smarter than I am, I think. That's kind of my
That,
assumption.
that's fair, unless, and on a conspiratorial tip, perhaps the elites are putting options against for this purpose. I don't know. Let's look at it. Let's check out the article together, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Once again, if you are listening to the Cajun Knight Live and you want to be a part of the conversation, link in the description below. This is from Foodable, which I think is, I'm not sure if it's a Chinese publication or a Japanese publication or what it is, but, say what you want. Let's check it out here. So what does SpaceX's sky-high valuation imply? It would require 60-fold growth over the next 10 years or an annual average revenue growth rate of 50%. This is for a company that inherently loses money hand over fist. Like they love watching it burn. And they just got this crazy high evaluation. So let's talk about it any more here. So SpaceX is set to list on NASDAQ on June 12th, which it is, at a valuation of 1.75 trillion. I was off. I said 1.7, 1.75. My bad. Calculations show that in order for investors to achieve an annualized return of approximately 10%, SpaceX would need to generate 1.1 trillion with a T in revenue by 2035, requiring an annual average growth rate of 50% over the next decade, representing a roughly 60-fold increase. Currently, however, SpaceX reports annual revenue of just 18.7 billion and remains unprofitable. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. How are they claiming 18 billion in revenue and still not profitable? We're going to talk about that. Actually, you know what? This article probably will bring it up, but I'm just going to bring the quick figures up on that now. So, SpaceX reportedly annual net loss of 4.94 billion on revenue of roughly 18.6 billion in its most recent fiscal year. Let's talk more about this here. Capital expenditures, heavy spending on artificial intelligence development, and the scaling of the Starship rocket program. That's where most of their money gets. Well, most of it goes to AI, but some of it gets redirected to the rocket program. The rocket program, like I said, does have some government contracts. So that department is overall, quote unquote, making money, but it's not enough to compensate for the rest of this. Core profitability, the launch services and Starlink segments actually generate operational profits on their own, but these gains are currently outweighed by the company's aggressive XAI related mergers and massive R&D spending. So there's ways you could look up the revenue breakdown for Starlink versus launch services. But my point is, yeah, they are actually losing money on the whole deal, and they just got evaluated to be possibly the most valuable company on Earth. If y'all can't see an issue with that, you know what I mean, get your calculator out and do that math as much as you need. Rumors of SpaceX's upcoming IPO continue to gain traction. According to plan, the space and AI company led by Elon Musk, aka I think Satan's little buddy. I don't think he's the Antichrist, but I think he might be Satan's little buddy. I don't know. Is set to list on NASDAQ on June 12th with a valuation of approximately 1.75 trillion, making it the highest valued IPO in history. But behind this figure lies an extremely demanding arithmetic problem. According to June 6 report by Fortune, David Traynor, CEO of Research for New Constructs, conducted an analysis using a discounted cash flow model. If investors expect an annualized return of approximately 10% over the next decade, a notably conservative assumption, SpaceX's revenue must reach 1.1 trillion by 2035. Okay. So continuing, and I'm going to take a quick aside here. They just changed the rules like a month ago for who could put money into an IPO. It used to be an investor of something like this, you had to have assets of at least $500,000. Which is why so many 401k programs and things like that got thrown in with a lot of these big IPOs. They follow the S&P 500. That being said, last month, or maybe a little over a month ago, I'd have to double check on the date, in the United States, they changed the bare minimum that you have to have. You right now have to have $2,000 in assets for you to be able to invest in this. What I think they're going to do is tank this stock and put it on all these 401ks and on private investors as a way to foot the bill. At least that's how my mathy math. And Jewish correspondent, does this math?
I have no idea.
You are the worst Jew ever. It's crazy, bro. Like, I'm sorry.
Jew ever.
I'm sorry. You're not Asian. I can't hold it to you. Our resident Asian correspondent, Sam, does this math to you?
I'm sorry, I was driving and thinking of the pie at the house. My bad, dog. But with that being said,
I love my team.
How are you a vampire? You've lived so long, and yet you can't figure out how to turn things into gold.
Oh my God! Well, he has a welder.
Apparently not. I was blessed with other skills besides money.
Yeah, he's a welder, so he does do metallurgy. To your point. Hey. Anyway,
I mean,
gold's metal, so.
Yeah, wherever you're driving, Sam, you're cutting up like crazy. Oh well, not important.
Well, I think earnings are not that important anymore. They're slightly more important than they were during the dot-com boom,
Okay.
when people had really nothing. At least SpaceX has got something, and I think people are really optimistic about there. Elon Musk has a lot of extremely committed fans. And if you look at Tesla in 2019, it was only $20 a share. And then before that, it was like 10 and $5 a share. And now it's 400.
I
It's
hear
actually off
you.
a little bit. So I think a lot of people just it's a bit of a cult of personality for one thing, and they just figure get in on it. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the price to earnings doesn't make sense because it'll still just go up anyway eventually. Maybe and what for Tesla, it's gone up 20-fold in since just before COVID.
It's
So they're
true.
just thinking somehow it'll happen. And they're not SpaceX isn't the only thing down recently. Tesla's actually down a little bit. It was at 440 not too long ago, and it's like 380 now.
Right.
And I have some of that too. I bought my first share of SpaceX today just to be like, hey, what the hell?
Dude,
If I buy it, that makes sure it will go down so I can buy a lot more at a
there
better
you go.
price. That's the emotional angle on it. But a lot of my stuff is down. I'm also into a lot of nuclear energy stocks and AI stocks. Bitcoin is also at a whole year low right now. It's at 59,000 something.
I am going to be
So
talking about the nuclear reactors in a bit, so I'm glad you actually will be able to speak in on some of that with your investments. But that, I
okay.
guess, and I hear you. I hear you as far as people being optimistic. I could get down with that. My issue is that, okay, and it even goes into it next in the article here. Currently, Amazon is the U.S. company with the highest revenue, reporting 742 billion in sales over the past 4 quarters. SpaceX would need to surpass this figure by nearly 50%. That's my issue. Amazon, which is the most money makingest company we got, is now Tesla, or I should say SpaceX, has now been evaluated at a higher margin than our number one production money making company we got. And this company loses money. That is going to shift, in my opinion, the entire S&P 500. And I'm not saying it's going to cause a Black Friday situation in to start the Great Depression by any means. I don't actually know what this looks like. I can't think of another example of a company that got over evaluated to this large of a margin and then watch the reverbs of that, I guess is my point. I'm not saying for certain that this is going to go down. I'm saying that I honestly don't know which way it's going to go, but I can't see it being positive long term unless SpaceX is about to unveil some new shit that they got and front the bill, i.e., they actually do make it to Mars, and Elon starts bringing Mars rocks back and starts selling them as jewelry, $1 billion a necklace. Then, all right, brother, you got me on this. I can't even say shit, but I can't see it. I don't know. Anyway.
Uh-huh. Well, here's another thing. Facebook started at $38 a share, and within a few months, it was $20 a share. It lost half its value. And right now, Meta is it peaked at 700, and right now it's at 557 per
Sure,
share. So it's
but
gone up tenfold, and it came out in 2012 IPO. So it's been 14 years.
but at least it had a product that could make money, if for nothing else, ad space on the app. And like I said, I don't know what Elon's plan is to make this company make that type of valuation make sense. I'm sure he's got a plan. Either that or he's tanking it on purpose because he still holds some bitterness towards Trump. I don't see that either being the option. I'm saying there's got to be something in the works that we are just not privy to yet. Or the people at the top
Yeah,
are
I
all
guess
in on
so.
it. I don't know.
Nobody knows the future, and
What
amazing
if
things
he's
can happen.
Yeah. What's that?
what if he's getting the SpaceX is going to take over where Ray Ray and Lockheed Martin are failing? What if he starts building shit for space weaponry?
So that's possible. And I've said this before on the Colts. I do think that the reason why he's making such a push for Mars is because of, and I'm only going off of, I had 2 friends that worked for SpaceX. One of them was a rocket engineer. The other one was one of, I don't want to say the maintenance guys, but one of the dudes that did the welding and some of the, work, actually like tool work as far as the Hercules rockets. And then they got hired by SpaceX. They told me that, and again, I'm not saying, well, they're in the inside, so they know. I take this with as much of a grain/mountain of salt that you need. I don't know, but if this is true, this would all make sense. So apparently, Mars has an abundance of crystallized methanol, LNG, if you will. And it's been there. It's crystallized because of how cold it is up there and no atmosphere. And the theory goes that whoever gets to Mars first can claim it for themselves, right? Like real shit. Let's say Elon launches a rocket tomorrow that lands on Mars. The United States can say, yeah, we claimed it. And Elon could very easily go, I'm sorry, who? Who claimed that? Because that's mine. I got there. Could you replicate what I did to get there? If not, then shut the fuck up, right? This being said, if Elon was to do that and colonize an entirely new planet that has all of this liquid natural gas crystals on it, it would not take much to do a couple more of these trips and build a facility that can actually manufacture the fuel on Mars. The process of decrystallizing and turning it into a fuel source is actually not that complicated. That being said, getting to Mars is the hard part. Once you get to Mars, if they were to build a manufacturing facility there that can, and we're using with SpaceX reusable rockets, that's his whole big shtick. Every part of it can be reused. They could use Mars as a launch platform for all other space exploration, because the hardest part of getting to space is breaking through our atmosphere. Once you break through, you have no more fuel. You used it all. Unless you hit the Solonic system gas station, if you will. That was told to me a couple years back. Me being a conspiracy theorist, I'm over here just like, bro, what if, right? Like, I don't know, bro, but what if that's true? I don't know. I still don't. But if that is true, and if that is something that is in the works, that would make a whole hell of a lot of sense for this crazy high evaluation and the future potential moves of SpaceX. Because from where we're sitting right now, also, unless there's some crazy secret government contracts that they just got, because they do have those, and I'm not denying it, but unless they've gotten some very, very lucrative government contracts, I can't see where this evaluation came from. I don't know. Let's continue reading and see what it says here. So, what is SpaceX's current revenue in 2025? It stands at just $18.7 billion, accompanied by a $4.9 billion loss. So from $18.7 billion to $1.1 trillion, roughly a 60-fold increase with only a 10-year window. So how difficult is it to really make a 50% annual growth over the next 10 years? So consider a comparison. NVIDIA, which I know we did a whole episode about that cult, is one of the fastest growing tech companies globally in the recent years. Between 2024 and 2025, NVIDIA added roughly $85 billion in revenue within a single year, an achievement already regarded as astonishing by the market. However, according to the aforementioned projection methodology, SpaceX would need to generate approximately $360 billion in additional revenue in its final year alone, more than four times of NVIDIA's projected incremental revenue for that year. So we're talking about this having meteoric rise. Actually, you know what? Meteoric might be the best way to describe it, pun intended. Heyo. But we're talking about something that has essentially never been done before, not to this scale, not to this scope. Fortune pointed out that in this single year revenue increase would be equivalent to Amazon's total cumulative revenue growth over the past 6 years. In his analysis, Traynor stated directly, such a growth rate has no historical precedence. So what this is also, keep in mind, $1.1 trillion is equivalent to 2.4% of the United States GDP. That's let that one sink in here. I remember a couple years back, maybe 2 years ago, when the Taylor Swift movie came out, she made and could account for 1% of the United States GDP. That was wild. A, no musical artist has ever come close to that. And B, that was unfucking precedented. Now, SpaceX, with this evaluation alone, this is equivalent to 2.4%. This is mind-blowing here. So the Congressional Budget Office forecasts that the U.S. GDP will reach approximately $46.7 trillion in 2035. If SpaceX achieves that $1.1 trillion in revenue, it would account for 2.4% of that. So what does this mean? According to Fortune's calculations, SpaceX's revenue at that time would be 1.5 times the size of the entire U.S. utility sector, 55% of the entertainment industry, and nearly 3/4 of the entire U.S. transportation sector, which includes aviation, rail, trucking, and freight logistics, and encompasses dozens of major companies such as Delta Airlines, CSX, FedEx, all of this. Trainer's assessment is large markets can indeed support substantial growth, but they also attract intense competition. Companies like Alphabet, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and OpenAI are all vying for market shares in AI, and it's impossible for everyone to capture several percentage points of GDP. SpaceX's S1 filing states that the addressable AI market is targeted at nearly $30 trillion. However, the larger market, the more competitors it attracts, the larger the market. The actual market share each company ultimately secures is often far smaller than anticipated, which I think is a pretty fair statement to say. So, all right, even if, and it's not like Grok is like just trouncing the AI market by any means, right? It depends on who you ask. Some people prefer Grok. Some people prefer ChatGPT. Some people prefer Claude. God, my words are having issues tonight. I apologize about that. But it's not like Grok is the king of the hill by any means. I think it's a very fair comparison to say that there's some real vying and juxtapositioning for which one is the top AI in this country. So unless they were to completely wipe out the other AI markets, perhaps that's the plan. Perhaps that's what Elon is vying for, to where it's a one-stop shop, and that's how he knows his AI is going to make money like crazy, because the rocket program is losing money hand over fist. Again, they have some government contracts. I'm not trying to like minimize that by any means, but I think it's also worth mentioning that they are very comfortable and willing to burn $40 billion a year, just up in smoke. Whoosh. I don't know. I think it's interesting, if nothing else here. The core contradiction in the valuation logic. There is a structural issue here that warrants attention. The 10% annualized return assumption embedded in the trainer model is already highly conservative. Typically, investors demand a higher return to compensate for the risk associated with high-risk, high-uncertainty growth stocks. In other words, if a more reasonable risk premium were used to reset return expectations, SpaceX's required revenue target would be even higher, not lower. Fortune magazine concluded that SpaceX's IPO is not only the largest and most closely watched in history, but also the most extensively priced to date. All right. So going off of all of these things here, I am not saying don't invest in SpaceX. I'm not saying that. You do what you want with your money. What I am saying is that once this takes place and goes to the levels that it's going to go, it is going to skyrocket everything, right? It's going to skyrocket the S&P 500. Everybody's investment portfolios are going to look great. Once it dips, it brings everything down with it, possibly. And because there are so many 401ks and even to now the point that you can invest with an IPO when you have $2,000 in assets. So you don't have to be some sort of a large group, mom and pop company out here in the middle of nowhere, but they've got, 100 employees and they wanted to do something with the 401k match. They put it in an IPO like this. This is going to drop for everybody. It's going to go great for a minute and then the rug is going to get pulled out. And I don't know how far that's going to go, right? I don't know how low that's going to go and how many people are going to be screwed in the meantime. The baby boomer generation is getting to retirement age. More and more of them are drawing from their 401k annually. I don't know how many people are going to get screwed over by trying to cash out during the dip, so to speak. I don't know. This is all purely speculative, and I thought it was interesting enough to bring up. That it's also very possible that Elon Musk is trying to collapse the U.S. economy. Say what you want. I thought it was interesting. Moving forward in the conversation here, we're going to talk about Rocket Lab launches U.S. Space Force mission with less than 17 hours notice, a new record. As we are talking about the rocket programs and the government contracts, Rocket Lab was pretty much from cold start to actually conducting a mission with less than 17 hours notice. which is impressive. I'll give you that. Continuing with the article here, Rocket Lab has successfully launched the second spacecraft for the U.S. Space Force Victus Hayes Tactically Response Space. TAC-RS, mission, setting a new readiness record on the process. Only 16 hours and 42 minutes passed between Rocket Lab receiving the notice to launch from the Space Force Space Safari Program Office. God, I could already tell these are going to be long-winded names. These are going to be long-winded titles. But okay, let's get through it here. And liftoff of the company's Electron launch vehicle, beating the previous TAC-RS record set by Firefly Aerospace on September 2023, on the September 2023 Victus Nox mission by more than 10 hours. Wow. Liftoff occurred on Friday, June 19th at 6:19 a.m. EDT. From Rocket Lab's Launch Complex 1 in New Zealand, beginning a rapid response demonstration designed to simulate a real-world orbital threat scenario. We have the Space Force running drills as a rapid response force for orbital threat scenarios. Anybody think that's just crazy? Like out loud? But all right, here we go.
And Independence Day is coming up.
Independence Day is coming up. Just throwing it out. I'm not saying these all things are connected. I'm saying what the hell? There's a lot of shit going on at the same time here. You know what I mean? You draw your own conclusions. Electron delivered a Rocket Lab-built Pioneer spacecraft to low Earth orbit LEO, where it has begun pursuit of another Victus Hayes spacecraft that was launched by SpaceX in May and serves as a target vehicle for the demonstration. They're going to shoot down the last thing they sent up there just to test their new weapons, which I'm not inherently mad at. At least we're shooting our own shit. But, like, I feel like we can't understate how wild this is. True Anomaly's Jackal satellite. According to June 22nd Rocket Lab statement, Pioneer is now fully commissioned and conducting complex orbital maneuvers to chase down another spacecraft on orbit and conduct rendezvous and proximity operations. Okay. Victus Hayes is a TAC-RS mission managed by Space Systems Command Space Safari Program Office. Space Safari. What an interesting concept. With the objective of demonstrating the rapid acquisition, launch, and operation of spacecraft in response to orbital threats and non-compliant satellites, quote unquote, the Rocket Lab release said. Non-compliant satellites. Could that possibly be UAPs and UFOs? Listen, I don't know. I'm just asking. Rendezvous and proximity operations are on such short timelines are certainly not trivial, especially in a crisis or conflict scenario. But this demonstration of our ability to commission a complex, capable space vehicle within less than 72 hours and immediately begin an RPO scenario thereafter, which would be the rendezvous, proximity, and operations, shows that we can field capability to deny adversaries first mover advantage into novel orbits, said Lieutenant Colonel Lincoln Miller, Space Safari System Program Manager, in the statement. Rocket Lab and True Anomaly teams are now managing their respective spacecrafts in orbit. They will soon enter RPO phase of Victus Hayes, conducting space domain awareness, threat response scenarios, and dynamic engagements within the other, according to a separate statement from the U.S. Space Force. Wow. This is insane. So Space Force officials have increasingly looked into commercial providers to develop new capabilities and technologies to address potential conflicts in space. Victus Hayes is primed to further demonstrate our readiness to lean on our commercial partners to deny, disrupt, and counter any adversarial advantage, no matter where they try to operate in space. This is from Colonel Brian McClain, U.S. Space Force. This is Space Force Portfolio Acquisition Executive. So the money guy for Space Force just said that. Okay. Within its Electron rocket and Pioneer spacecraft, both vertically integrated into Rocket Lab's manufacturing process, this Victus Hayes launch marks the first TAC-RS mission to be carried out by a single prime contractor, providing the spacecraft launch vehicle and orbit and on-orbit operations. This is what modern space power looks like, the ability to reinforce and reimagine national security space architecture at will. Wow. Rocket Lab CEO Peter Beck said this. We're proud to be providing the nation with those next generation space capabilities today. It's wild times, y'all. It's absolutely wild times. So Space Force is absolutely starting to test rockets for the capability of space combat. This is real life that's happening right now. And they keep going on about UFO and UAP disclosures. And a lot of that is not like new news to us. And I understand that. But it's still interesting to see. It's still interesting to get a look at all of it and see how these things are shaking out and lining up. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let's continue forward with this conversation. Trump administration to loan $17 billion to speed deployment of 10 big nuclear reactors. So while we have a lot going on in the space world, we also need to talk about the nuclear world, not bombs, but nuclear power sites. And let's talk about this here. So he's going to loan $17 billion to speed the deployment of these nuclear reactors. And y'all know that I'm also a fan of nuclear power. I've never been shy about that. I think that the magic rock that can heat up water that we can use for renewable and pretty much it's the greenest energy option we have currently. I don't know why we're not investing more heavily into this. Well, what about Fukushima? What about Chernobyl? Those were sites that were not ran the right way. And I'm not going to try to belittle the devastation of these things and how bad things can be. Yes. But in America, we also have a pretty sound operating system as far as nuclear energy goes. And I think we could scale it up to have nuclear electricity for everyone right now. But I know that some people think there's a unpopular opinion. Some people are on board, some people aren't. It's one of those hard lines in the sand. So the key point of this article, the Energy Department will provide $17.5 billion in loans to 5 projects that will each build 2 big nuclear reactors. The project will use Westinghouse AP1000 reactor designs that can generate 1.1 gigawatts of electricity. The money will help finance complex components that typically take a long time to manufacture and deliver. So I will say this also. When it comes to anything nuclear, speeding production is not the way to go. We want things to be slowed down, take your time, do it the right way because you, like we're talking about how dangerous it could be, you may not get a second shot. I will say that I have had multiple buddies work on nuclear sites and in the building and in the maintenance side of things. They can't change any component for the most part since like the 1950s or 60s whenever these congressional rules were passed. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's say you got a water valve, on anything. Could be the fire system or whatever. Doesn't matter. You have to change it out with the exact same style, type, size, company name, valve that you are taking out. And that's fine, except for the fact that industrial technology has gone up a few ticks since the 1950s. It's not even like they're running off of like pneumatically because there are certain plants where that makes more sense. More industrial facilities where pneumatic might work better than just straight solenoid, like a diaphragm valve or whatever. Like there's things to where situation dictates that might be the right course of action. However, they can't change things to a newer model without getting congressional approval and good fucking luck getting that approved. So the fact they're trying to speed run this and go to more markets and more places that could manufacture these components, I see what they're doing. I'm not inherently against it. It could become a problem later is all I'm saying. Anyway, the Energy Department announced Tuesday, I said that already. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said the loans will lower construction costs and accelerate the deployment of the reactors by up to 3 years. You see my problem? That's my problem. So the same guy that I was talking to, he had to run a pipe from point A to point B. If y'all don't know what a Jersey barrier is, I recommend you look it up, the concrete type. He had to have this, it was like a 1.5 inch pipe that had to be strapped down every like 6 inches on this Jersey barrier, like secured. And he couldn't figure out why. It was just a water pipe. There was nothing going through here. The dude in charge said, we need to know that if we have an earthquake, a volcano, and a tsunami at the exact same time, that pipe won't move, period. That's the level of scrutiny that goes into these facilities. So the fact they're trying to speed run this has me a bit concerned. That's all I'm saying. The loan will support the construction of 5 projects. Oh, how they're just repeating that. Okay. 5 projects will use. I already read that one too. What the world is happening? Or did it jump on me? Okay. Westinghouse will partner up with 5 eligible utilities or energy companies on the projects. It already has signed letters of intent with 7 potential partners, each with identified project sites. Wright declined to disclose the locations of the candidate sites in a call with reporters. He said final decisions have not yet been made on which sites will receive the funding. They're geographically spread across the country, he said. Shares of Westinghouse's parent company, Cameco, I don't know, Corp, were up more than 1% after the Department of Energy announcement. The loans will go not directly to Westinghouse, said Greg Beard, who heads the DOE's loan office. Instead, the financing will go to 5 special purpose vehicles, Beard said. Westinghouse and its partners have to contribute nearly $1 billion in equity to each SPV to unlock the loan money. So they at least got to have some sort of skin in the game. The Trump administration anticipates that the big tech companies will sign long-term power purchase agreements with the project to support the construction of the reactors. The tech sector has played an instrumental role in stimulating renewed demand for nuclear power as they search for reliable, emission-free power sources to fuel the data centers they are building for artificial intelligence. That's what it all boils down to. As we were talking about SpaceX and their AI, circle back to this. They are literally, I guarantee that's all it is. It's like, oh, I can't really say the locations. Geographically, they're all over the country. I guarantee that these are all within a certain radius of one of these new data centers that have been built. Absolutely. Why not? Because they take so much electricity and somehow water just for cooling that now we have to reinvigorate our nuclear sector. Fuck the American people, obviously, clearly. What do we need cheaper electricity bills for, right? What do we need power outages for and all that? Whatever. That's just because we're us. But these data centers, y'all, the AI, the data centers, we need these to be built to support them because these can never go down. Out loud. What are we talking about here? Microsoft and Alphabet's Google have signed agreements to support the restart of 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania and Duane Arnold in Iowa, respectively. But the tech sector has not inked a deal yet that supports the construction of a new big plant. President Trump signed an executive order in May 2025, that called for the construction to start on 10 large nuclear reactors by 2030. Westinghouse subsequently committed to meeting that goal. The AP1000 is the only large reactor design that is licensed to operate in the U.S. I find it odd that they would have to tell us that that was the design they were using whenever that's all we can use. But okay, fine, sure. Anyway, as we were talking about all these other things, SpaceX, AI, rockets, I did want to bring this one up. On the one hand, I am very excited to see the nuclear sector get a cash infusion. That's great. But at what long-term costs? Does it make sense? Does what I'm saying make sense to everybody? But Tony, you also invested in nuclear power. Now, was this in a company or in what regard?
Yeah, I've invested in a few companies like Oklo, Iris Energy, and SMR, small nuclear reactors. These are kind of startups, and they will be aiding in the construction of new power plants. And you already brought up the headline. There should be 10 new ones coming online sometime eventually. I don't think we've built a single new one since 1975 or so. That might be in the article. But I think it's about time for it to come back. Oh,
I agree. I don't know when the last one we built was. I know there's like 80, give or take, that are built and have never been used. I'd be lying if I told you what date the last one was finally finished, but basically they started them up just to make sure they worked, and then they shut the project down and just left. So if they were going to reinvigorate those, then fine.
Yeah, 3 Mile Island was in 1979, and they didn't build any for a few years before that happened even, and that was a bit of a fluke accident. And there were 100, I think slightly over 100 operating in the US. I wrote a research paper on this in college, but now it's been going down and down. They decommissioned San Onofre, I remember when I was in California.
Yep.
And every so often you just hear, and another one goes down. And I think Germany, they used to have a lot of nuclear, and I think they got rid of all of it. And it's a real shame what's happening over there. Germany is just dying, and partly because they're really dumb.
I heard that they
partly for other reasons too that I won't mention.
Right. I heard that Germany was fighting back against the things that are going down with the immigrants and all this. Very similar to Ireland and England right now. Like the population's like, yeah, we're about tired of this, boss. We just gonna take it back. Have you heard anything on these reports?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's been some very censored people like Martin Sellner from Austria and a few others whose names escape me right now, but they've been debanked and deplatformed for years. And they're finally starting to get the attention they deserve, largely because they've had to leave the country and, do their work from other countries like the United States.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the white population of Europe is becoming less and less of a majority, and they're starting to finally start to fear what's going to happen when they're a minority, because it just will happen if current trends continue forever.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I'm glad it's not, it seems like more and more European countries are trying to let their voice be heard by their government, and they're actually taking to the streets, not burning shit down, but like letting their voice be heard, which we're also going to be talking about the flamingo protests in Albania towards the end of this episode. I didn't realize that Ivanka Trump, i.e. Donald Trump, has now caused a actual flamingo revolution in Albania. This is awesome. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about that here in a bit. Anyway, on to the next article. Let's continue here. But y'all, this might be the reason. This might be the reason for all of this shit. The SpaceX evaluation, the nuclear power, all of this. This is from KSR. A psychic says aliens will invade the World Cup tonight. Tonight, y'all. If you're watching the World Cup, keep an eye up on the sky, man. We don't know, okay? What if they picked Rupp Arena instead? The psychic said. Have you heard of the big disclosure news? Later this evening, an alien mothership will appear over the World Cup match in Miami, according to a Brazilian psychic's prediction for today's Scotland-Brazil match. The claim was first made by another famous psychic, Baba Vanga, who died in 1996 at age 84. She had long warned her followers about an alien invasion during a major sporting event in the future, and Brazilian psychic Vo Bahiana told Baba Vanga's predictions took them even further, by pinpointing June 24th, 2026 as the date it will occur. That is today, as of time of recording. I haven't checked up on the latest on the World Cup. If anybody wants to check it out and see if that took place and I just didn't hear about it, because that might tie into the earthquake conversation we're going to have in a bit. I don't fucking know, dude, but we'll see. Should they be right in their prophecies, the mothership will hit South Florida between 6 and 8 p.m. tonight, and it will suck up thousands of fans from the crowd. Wouldn't that be something? So, y'all, this is, as of time of recording, that was 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, local time, I'm assuming. So if anybody wants to take a second and Google what was the results of the Brazil-Scotland game, which also, for my own question mark, I would like for somebody to do that for me and tell me what the score was. But beside the point, yeah, maybe some things went down. I don't know. Anybody find the scores?
I'm looking right now. Brazil defeats Scotland 3-0. Well, I don't know if you can always trust AI, because I've heard that you... Okay, Al Jazeera says it's 3-0.
Yeah.
It was 3-0.
Yo, I'm just saying, Brazil versus Scotland. Listen, I'm nothing against the Scots. I know they love their football and shit, but like Brazil versus... Yeah, I'm sorry. Clearly. Obviously. But the fact that you're seeing that and not things about alien crafts... Wouldn't you know it, Baba Vanga was wrong. And so is this other psychic, quote unquote, person. But hey, I figured it would give us a little lighthearted, break in the mix of everything. So continuing on here, let's talk about this: the Iranian nuclear inspections that just went down. And I would love for you, Tony, to weigh in on this one after the video. Let's learn about it together, y'all.
At the top of the hour, President Trump stating that Iran must ensure its commitment to long-term nuclear honesty.
Okay, this comes as the International Atomic Energy Committee, the IAEA, says their inspectors will visit the regime's nuclear sites. I would like an American in that cadre.
Me too. Trey Yinks joins us live in Tel Aviv with the details. Good morning, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. The head of the IAEA said today there will be inspections of Iranian nuclear facilities, marking a major milestone in the negotiations between the United States and Iran. He indicated that locating that highly enriched uranium remains a top priority.
This has been signed, has been agreed. Paragraph 8 of this Memorandum of Understanding says explicitly that the nuclear activities that are going to be carried out with regards to the nuclear material facilities and will be supervised by the IAEA in all letters.
While the timeline is unclear, this statement shows that while Iran says one thing publicly, there are clear agreements behind the scenes. President Trump was asked about the Iranian denial yesterday.
They know they're wrong. They told us inside, and we have it down 100% inspections. And if they were right, I'd cancel the meetings right now.
Mr. President, when will those inspectors actually be on the ground?
At the appropriate time. At the appropriate time. There's no rush, but they'll be on the ground at the appropriate time.
The president's remarks come as more vessels are passing through the Strait of Hormuz, with millions of barrels of crude oil exiting the Persian Gulf each day. The ceasefire on this regard appears to be making progress. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in the Middle East for meetings about the agreement and the path forward. He said this on Tuesday about Iran.
If Iran makes a decision, if its leadership makes a decision that they want to be a country instead of a revolutionary movement that exports terror, they're going to have an opportunity to do incredible things in Iran. I'm not promising you that that's the choice they're going to make. I'm saying if that's the choice that they make, then there will be opportunity.
On the issue of Lebanon, a fifth round of direct talks were held yesterday directly between the governments of Israel and Lebanon, aimed at normalizing ties between the two countries and disarming Hezbollah. Guys?
Trey, thanks so much. Appreciate it. I have 100 questions for you, but I guess we're going to wait till the next hour.
All right, so we'll see what shakes out with this. I will say that I am loving the fact that gas got to $3 a gallon in my area. That at least gives me hope that this situation with the Strait is actually possibly tentatively over. I don't know. Tony, weigh in on this.
Well, I think that it's going to heat up a lot again because Israel's not going to give up Lebanon, and there's going to be something to start the missiles flying again unless they evacuate Lebanon. And Iran has always been a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, so the IAEA has always been able to inspect them. Iran has complained about some specific inspectors and also complained that they think the IAEA is a vehicle for Israel and the U.S. to spy on them. But they let in most of the inspectors anyway. They reject a few individuals that have a history doing that over history, but they have complied with it. And it's not surprising that they're going to continue to comply. And back when the JCPOA was in effect, they agreed not to enrich past 3.6%, and there were more Americans involved in the inspections back then than there have been since.
Yeah.
So
at this
we
point,
should just stuck with the JCPOA.
I'm wondering at this point if Iran will, just to stop everything, just to put, and that's the thing, it would, because Trump is not going to back down from something, because that's a sign of weakness, and that's like that's his biggest fear, I think. But the new Ayatollah and the prime minister, do you think that they would capitulate and say, fine, Americans can be a part of the thing and do all the stuff, whatever, just stop bombing, let's get back to business as usual? Or do you think that they would dig their heels in for Lebanon and be like, no, fuck you?
I think they would allow inspections, but simultaneously, they'll say, come on, inspect us. We don't care. But if Israel doesn't get out of Lebanon, I think that Iran will launch missiles at Israel again. And I think Donald Trump does not have a major incentive to let Israel keep southern Lebanon, the southern 20% they conquered and displacing 1 million people. Donald Trump does not see this as a hill he's willing to die on. He's going to try to persuade Israel behind the scenes, like, look, just give it back.
Yeah, I could see that too. It's possible, right? The only connection I could see, which I know that everybody's going to say AIPAC. I'm with that. I get it, right? Trump and Netanyahu are not on the best of terms right now. They haven't been for a little while. That being said, it's not like Netanyahu's approval ratings in his own country are doing too hot either. But with all of that, the situation off the coast of Albania might be like the linchpin to all of this because of who his daughter is married to. It's possible, and that might be how the Albanian revolution, somehow Iran like throws in their weight on that shit. I don't know. We'll talk about it here when we get to that article, as a matter of fact. But before we do, let's talk L.A. Let's talk about federal agents bust a massive $27 million hospice fraud ring in L.A. They just keep finding more of these frauds, these fraudsters out here doing some things. Let's learn about it together. On screen right now, we have a woman getting arrested by federal agents. We can turn that down a little bit so we can talk about it. Yeah, they got a woman getting arrested right now. They're in LA, obviously. Tell by the buildings and things. Let's see if we can move forward to the press conference. They're walking her down the stairs. All right, here we go.
Today we are announcing federal and state charges, all of which were charged or unsealed at some point over the past 2 weeks, the past 14 days. Coordinated nationwide action. Since June 8th, we've charged 455 defendants across 56, like I said a minute ago, U.S. attorney's offices, and 45 U.S. states and territories. As alleged in the various indictments, these individuals participated in healthcare fraud schemes involving over $6.5 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. The team around me will get into more specifics, but here are a few points that stand out. In one indictment, we're bringing charges against a corporate executive in Arizona in connection to over a $1 billion fraud involving unnecessary wound grafts. This alleged scheme costs Medicare over $1 million per patient. In total, our indictment charges 11 defendants for over $2 billion in fraudulent claims in connection to alleged wound care schemes. The indictment also alleges that these individuals then used the taxpayer money to bankroll multi-million-dollar homes, luxury vehicles like a $135,000 Maserati, jewelry like an $865,000 Bulgari necklace, and to top it all off, to fund the construction of a $4.6 million hotel at a beach resort in the Philippines. We're taking back the money, the luxury cars, the jewelry, and these alleged fraudsters will face justice. The coordinated actions of the past 2 weeks have resulted in over $182 million in cash and other assets seized, making clear our healthcare fraud enforcement efforts generate a significant return on investment for our taxpayers.
Yeah, a significant return on investment for the taxpayers. I'm confident that that's what's going to happen here. Let's read about it, shall we? From the New York Post. Massive $27 million LA hospice fraud revealed as medical scammers use dead patients to fund lavish lifestyles. So federal agents pounced on a slew of alleged medical fraudsters accused of massive schemes in Los Angeles, including a $27 million plot to steal the identities of dead people as part of a national takedown by acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal attorney in D.C. Authorities arrested 5 people accused of stealing millions in taxpayer dollars and charged 5 others, including Van News. Probably mispronouncing it, doesn't matter. A hospice owner accused of swiping the identities of dead people to fund a flashy car collection, including a $530,000 Rolls-Royce Phantom, which, like, okay, listen, I'm not about defrauding the dead to fund your lifestyle, but also like, I'll give him credit. Your boy has taste. Say what you want. In a Tuesday press conference, Blanche announced multiple takedowns that charged hundreds defendants nationwide. Hundreds of defendants, I would think. The feds this year busted medical fraudsters accused of stealing more than $6.5 billion nationwide, including a record-breaking arrest of 455 alleged healthcare crooks in 45 states. The nation's top prosecutors said fraudsters can no longer rip off American taxpayers. That's what Blanche said. We heard him say it in the press conference. Continuing, if you seek to harm or cheat Americans, we will find you, seize any assets, prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Federal authorities suspended Medicare payments to 1,000 people in the first half of the year, and much of the fraud occurs in California, said FBI Director Kash Patel. Take his word as you want it. That's a lot of people, said Patel, with nearly 800, by the way, from one state, California. Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. called out Los Angeles as a hive of hospice fraud, pointing out that federal authorities have closed down 800 hospices in LA alone. One of the ways that we've been able to detect that fraud is in many of them, the patients never die. They live forever, said Kennedy. That's not supposed to happen in hospices. Yeah, I would agree. The California Post was there last week as federal agents swooped on Orrin David Shakar, I don't know, taking the owner of at least 4 hospices in Los Angeles area into custody for an elaborate series of alleged schemes that involve stealing the identities of people to bill for hospice services. Shaker, I don't know, allegedly funneled the money from his businesses to pay for luxury goods, including $15,000 taken directly from one of his hospices for the down payment on a lease to own Rolls-Royce Phantom, a car that carries a sticker price, like we said earlier, $530,000. Shaker, whatever, paid funeral home workers Abraham Shin and Jenny Choi, yeah, the jokes are writing themselves here, for the personal information of dead people that he used to bill the government for hospice services that were never provided, paying between $1,000 and $3,000 for each deceased person's identity, prosecutors charge. That is a low amount for a dead person's identity, I would think. Like, you would think he'd pay his people more, I guess. I don't know. In total, federal prosecutors in the Central District of California have brought criminal charges against 10 defendants who've allegedly engaged in fraud against government-funded health programs or abused their positions as doctors to illegally prescribe controlled substances. Public health programs are intended to support the elderly, the ill, the needy, and other vulnerable members of our communities, said First Assistant United States Attorney Bill Asaley. It's not there to enrich fraudsters. Yeah, I would agree. That's the Rolls-Royce Phantom, on screen right now, which, again, I'm not saying I support his actions. I'm saying your guy has got exquisite taste in automobiles. Take that how you want it. Anyway. Shaker, 59 of Van Nuys, and Shin, 66. Okay.
Van Nuys.
Van Nuys. That's how I've actually never seen that word spelled out.
It's like Natchitoches, but in California.
Okay. I've heard of Van Nuys, California. I've never seen it spelled out. So thank you, Tony. That's going to make so much more sense now. Shaker, 59 of Van Nuys, and Shin, 66 of Corona, were arrested on June 18th and arraigned in U.S. District Court in Los Angeles. Both accused crooks, along with Choi, 57 of Torrance, are charged in a 16-count indictment alleging that they ripped off Medicare for approximately $27 million. Choi was arrested Monday and expected to appear Tuesday in the U.S. District Court in L.A. Shaker allegedly conspired with marketers Choi and Shin to submit false claims for hospice services for people who were not terminally ill or were already dead, the authorities said, paying kickbacks to a local funeral home for the names of the dead. Payments of the false claims went to at least for 4 hospices controlled by Shaker, including Gentle Touch Hospice in Valley Glen, Oxford Hospice Care in Montclair, Art of Hospice in Incio, and Holy Trinity Hospice in Glendale. The Post was also on hand when federal agents on June 17th swarmed on Christina Marek, 61 of Whittier, arresting her on a federal criminal complaint charging her with healthcare fraud. Damn, it's going down over there. Federal authorities say that she submitted nearly $270 million in bogus Medi-Cal claims for expensive prescription drugs that were not medically necessary and in many instances not provided to the purported recipients. Medi-Cal paid more than $178 million on fake drug claims. This is what the prosecutors are charging them. Marique allegedly worked for Paul Richard Randall, 67 of Orange, a patient marketer for Monta Vista Pharmacy, collaborating with Randall to bill the government for fake drug claims. Federal authorities seized multiple luxury cars and rare baseball cards in connection with the scheme. Randall pled guilty on April 7th to wire fraud and faces up to 30 years in federal prison. Marique is free on a $100,000 bail, and her arraignment is scheduled for July 23rd. Asali said federal authorities will keep up, maintain pressure. Yeah, the way they wrote this was really thrown together. But anyway, pressure on medical fraudsters who are trying to get away with ripoffs in LA. We'll find you, we'll arrest you, and we will seek long prison sentences. So, all right, as we're talking about things in economic places, right? The economy possibly crashing because of SpaceX or whatever else. I also thought it was only right to bring up this situation with old LA. But while we were talking about Cali, let's talk about the earthquakes. There was 3 big earthquakes in Venezuela, Japan, and in California. Let's learn about this together, y'all.
Earthquakes have just struck within a half hour of each other in 2 different parts of the world. The first struck in Venezuela about 2 hours ago. 7.1 quake hit in the northwest part of the country near the Caribbean coast. It was quickly followed by a 7.5 quake. Video shows the moment the quake struck. You can see people trying to hold on to breakable items as the room shakes. And here's some look at the damage left behind. We're still waiting to learn if anyone was hurt. This quake has also triggered a tsunami advisory in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Then about a half hour later, another quake hits, this one in Japan. This a 6.9 striking along the country's northern coast. It hit during the morning rush hour there. So far, no reports of injuries or damage and no tsunami warnings have been issued for this quake.
All right, we want to bring in our chief meteorologist, Jeff Ranieri, to talk about this. He's been tracking this. I know even here, we picked it up on our seismograph. Can you talk to us about that Venezuela earthquake?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with that. And if you're checking our app or you're getting those alerts, you're noticing 2 different reports, these coming within less than a minute of each other. We had a 7.2 and also a 7.5. Now, usually that's going to be combined into one final number. We're still waiting to hear if it was 2 separate quakes or if the USGS just needs to recertify this and get that number range anywhere between a 7.2 to 7.5. Nonetheless, a powerful earthquake happening here in South America, just to the west of Caracas. We did have a tsunami advisory here for Puerto Rico. That has since been canceled. But a lot of the video we are seeing come in from this earthquake, in some cases, buildings being pancaked, likely going to be some deaths, and certainly a lot more damage video coming in from this one. Now, less than a half hour later, okay, the earthquakes continue here. We had a 6.9 in Japan. I want to reiterate, no West Coast tsunami warning. We're still waiting to learn more information on this earthquake. Then additionally today, again, we have been so extremely busy on the earthquake front. We had a 5.6 here north of the Bay Area. So as we get you in closer, this is a very well-known fault zone happening on the Mayakama fault zone here, just to the south and also to the east of Willits. Very shallow at 6 miles below the Earth's surface at 8:10 this morning. And you can see multiple aftershocks in this region ranging anywhere from a 1.0 to a 4.6 magnitude, at least 25 of those. This fault zone is capable of producing a very large earthquake. And of course, we will continue to pay attention to this tonight and of course in the coming days. Strongest right up there, of course, at the epicenter with that strong shaking, but only weak shaking felt here throughout the Bay Area, across parts of the North Bay, even down a little bit there towards San Francisco. So let's put this on a scale. The 5.0 range for that quake here in the Bay Area considered moderate, about 1,500 per year. We look at that Japan quake, that is considered strong, about 120 per year. And then the South America quake ranging in the 7 category, only about 18 per year. So anytime we get earthquakes, reminders here, falling debris atop hazard.
And then he goes into a whole thing about for anybody who lives in earthquakes, what they can do. Most people that live in earthquake zones know the proper steps to take. However, back to the point here. Is it possible, because, especially with the whole UFO, UAP disclosure conversation, some say that they are beneath the water. And I don't know, all these earthquakes going on, some would speculate that something big is about to go down. I don't know. I don't know when the last time that there was 3 earthquakes this far apart from each other that all happened within 30 minutes of each other. I'm sure it's happened before. I'm sure there's recorded history behind it. I have a feeling that the odds of this are rather low. I don't know. But as we were talking about Japan with the largest of the earthquakes of the day, let's also talk about something just to the north of Japan. A North Korean soldier has crossed the border in a suspected defection. South Korea news agency is reporting on this. So I don't know. I heard a couple of different reports on this. This is CBS News. Some reports are saying that it was absolutely him trying to defect. Some were saying that he plans to make his way to America on some Naomi Park shit and make a speaking tour to talk about how evil North Korea is. I don't know. We just talked about last night that North Korea is actually trying to extend an olive branch right now to South Korea. I'm not sure if I believe that or not, but I do think that Kim Jong is kind of like, it's not like he's going to open up North Korea to the world. He is very, very happy with his hermit kingdom. I don't think he has any intentions of changing that, but let's see here. Let's see what CBS has to say on it. South Korea took a soldier from the north into custody after the individual crossed the heavily fortified border this week in what is believed to be a defection, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported Wednesday. The military secured one North Korean soldier in the Central Front Tuesday night, and relevant authorities have currently investigating or are currently investigating the details. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a message to the media, according to Yonhap. Tens of thousands of North Koreans have fled to South Korea since the peninsula was divided in the war, or by the war in 1950s. The last time a North Korean soldier made a daring move was October of 2025. Most go overland into neighboring China first, then enter a third country such as Thailand before finally making it to the south. Defections across the land border that divided the peninsula are relatively rare, as the area is densely forested, ridden with landmines, and monitored by soldiers on both sides. North Koreans are typically handed over to Seoul's intelligence agency for screening after arriving in the south. More than 34,000 North Koreans have escaped the isolated country to the south, according to the data from the Unification Ministry. In 2024, 236 North Koreans arrived in South Korea, with women accounting for 88% of the total. Wow. Pyongyang uses harsh words as human scum to describe citizens who escape. So again, I'm who's to say what's going to happen with this guy, right? I know that there are certain people that believe that North Korea isn't as bad as what some of the defectors have said. However, how many times have we seen people escape from a country that they think is awesome? And this could be said not just towards the Korean situation, but Cuba is another example. Like, how many people loved Cuba so much that they built boats out of trash to get the hell away from it? You see what I'm saying? And I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of Kim Jong as far as a leader goes, but I also don't think that he's about to make some sort of a, because we were talking about that. There was North Korean troops that went to Russia, or went to Ukraine, I should say, the Ukrainian front. And they were nicknamed the Goon Brigade because they had never had internet before, and apparently were just like becoming instantaneously addicted to porn. And the Ukrainians were able to ping their IP addresses based off of that, and they could just check where they were and do some damage. I do not know how many North Korean troops are still over in that arena, or how many of them were sent back. I know China was talking about sending people at one point, but I don't think anything really materialized out of that. If nothing else, nobody in the North Korean military has seen combat since the 50s. So if there's a war going on, and North Korea and Russia are homies, this is not a rare thing to say, it would only stand to reason that North Korea would send their troops out there to gain some real boots on the ground experience so that they could come back to North Korea and teach their line units. This makes perfect sense to me. I have no idea, because all we ever heard about was the first, I think there was like 2 or 3 groups that made their way to the Ukrainian front. And the last word I heard was that they were being called the Goon Brigade, and like that was it. So I have no idea what the casualty ratio was on that unit, if they're still in combat, if they've all come home, if they're cycling more dudes in and out. I honestly couldn't tell you. But to be honest, the media hasn't talked about the Ukraine-Russia situation like really hot and heavy by the media. I don't like there's still news articles going out about it. CNN and Fox have not mentioned anything on that really, other than like a little 3 to 5 minute note and then move on to the next topic in quite some time. And I think there's a reason for that too, honestly. It's the favor that it once had is gone, you know. I don't know. But yeah, so we have another North Korean defector on our hands. I accidentally did not bring up the right article as far as the Flamingo Revolution goes. So I had to actually go and find the article so we could talk about it here. So the Flamingo Revolution, for those that do not know, Albania, famously has their first AI minister of anything, but this would be the minister of procurement. It's a very, very corrupt country. Again, not a hot take. And they apparently, I didn't know this, have a really dense population of flamingos. And they have used this as the calling card, so to speak, for the revolution. What is the Flamingo Revolution, you might ask? It aims to stop the Kushner-backed resort on protected Albanian Delta. So let's just dive into this now, because we just talked about this last night on the Cult of Conspiracy Live. It's very possible that Trump, Donnie T type, is using his daughter, Ivanka type, to buy this island so that he could put a chokehold on oil and gas going in and out of the Algerian Sea, or the Aegean, excuse me. This is a real risk. And I think that he just saw the Iranian tactic and was like, man, that was like really easy to do. And if I could do that on the private sector or the federal sector at this point, that could make money. It could make money. And also, I think he thinks that it will make good TV because that's his whole thing. So let's talk about this. I'm not going to try to pronounce that word, VJOSA, Narta, Albania. In late April, heavy machinery began moving into the Pishporo Narta protected landscape in Albania's Adriatic coast without permits or public notice. I'm just going to give the distinction now. I apologize for my pronunciations to any of our Romanian and Albanian listeners. I only speak American English and barely at that. Excuse me. Bulldozers and excavators felled coastal pine trees, flattened sand dunes, and cut new roads through previously untouched habitats. The barbed wire fences went up alongside the shoreline. The incursion was the realization of a luxury resort development backed by Jared Kushner, U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law. The development plans of Kushner's Affinity Partners, a private equity fund, stretch from the uninhabited Sazan Islands into Vojanarda protected landscape, the delta region of Albania's Vosa River, and includes the Pishporonarta. Okay, again, I'm sorry, y'all. A large land swath. Okay, roughly twice the size of Paris. This area shelters flamingos, Dalmatian pelicans, okay, loggerhead sea turtles, and more than 70 endangered species, among them the Mediterranean monk seal. Interesting enough, neither Affinity Partners nor the Office of the Prime Minister of Albania responded to Manga Bay's request for comment. Well, I would assume so, right? Let's see if this video is actually going to show us something. So this is drone footage of protesters gathering on the beach. And it's not just on this beach, y'all. The protesters, there's been over the past few days specifically, but I would say possibly weeks, tens of thousands of Albanians that are taken to the street with flamingo signs, basically saying, no, we don't want the Trumps in Albania. That's just what they're about it. And they're so tired of their government for corruption purposes. And now they're like, nah, fuck this. We'll draw the line in the sand here. When protesters arrived at the site, security guards confronted them. Video of a demonstrator being dragged across the dunes on May 30th near the village of Zvernek, went viral. Soon, demonstrations erupted in Tirana, the Albanian capital, in what has since been dubbed the Flamingo Revolution. The protests have grown larger every day, with tens of thousands demanding accountability for corruption and an end to environmental abuses. The registration of Edi Rama, Albania's prime minister. That also, like they want the corruption gone, stop hurting the environment, and we want the resignation of the prime minister. On June 6, hundreds of demonstrators made their way to the Dallin Beach for a symbolic rally near the site of the original incursion. The barbed wire fences had been taken down a few days earlier, and the machinery was gone. But no one there believed the battle was done. Okay, they're save. I can't read the rest of the word, but yeah, they're carving things in the sand on the beach. Save Narda, excuse me. Vosa Narda is one of the last intact delta wildernesses in the Mediterranean. Only 4% of the region's deltas remain in relatively undisturbed state. And this is the largest and most biodiverse. More than 2,300 species have been documented across a mosaic of lagoons, reed beds, salt flats, and coastal dunes that formed over millennia. It's a direct quote from Hane Mili, a 36-year-old baker and part-time hiking guide living in the area. I call it the place where I go to meet the gods. Wow. Wow, absolutely. At the heart of the delta lies the Narda Lagoon, a vast, shallow body of brackish water stretching more than 40 square kilometers, where the Vosa River meets the Adriatic Sea. It hosts more than 20,000 wintering water birds and ranks among the most important wetlands in the Adriatic Flyway, the migration corridor along which millions of birds travel each year between Africa and Europe. Here, we are not just fighting for Albania's natural heritage. We are fighting for the natural heritage of everywhere. This is what Alexander Tracy, executive director of the Protection and Preservation of Natural Environment in Albania, told Mongabe. Italy and Spain have destroyed miles and miles of coastline, and now they're trying to restore what they lost. Albania does not have to make the same mistakes. Okay. So there's a biosphere reserve that they're going to talk about here. But long story short, all of it has become a part of this protest here. In September of 2025, the Delta received an additional layer of protection when it was included in the newly designed Vosa Valley UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, a status the EU had supported as part of Albania's accession process. But in January, Ivanka Trump, Kushner's wife, visited Albania with architects and met with Rama, a trip widely interpreted as a signal that the Kushner project was moving forward towards construction. Rama, which is again the prime minister, has made his position clear. Speaking on the sidelines of the EU Western Balkans summit in Montenegro on June 5th, he dismissed the international attention the project has drawn. If it wasn't Jared, they wouldn't give a shit. That's what he told Politico. Wow. I mean, shouts out for him actually speaking like a normal person instead of being a politician about it. And maybe there's something to be said for that, right? I don't know what Albania's population density is of certain areas, and I don't personally think Albania is really fond of Israel. I don't think they're homies, but I don't think they're fond either. They're probably more neutral, but more towards the negative if I had to guess. But there's a real statement to be said here. One of the first children and her husband, who has dual citizenship to Israel, has just vied for a position in a very strategic location. And again, let's not sidestep the amount of bunkers and military bases that are on this island. Like, they're not worried. They're going to try to find any legal way that they could stop this. They're going for the UNESCO biodiversity site, which is fine. If that works, it works. But I also think there's a lot more at play here than just a seaside resort for the Trumps. So anyway, conservationists say Albanian government has also failed to honor its legal obligations under the management plan for the Wild River National Park. While the park has delivered important results, most of all stopping the dam projects, violations have mounted. Large quantities of water have been diverted from the Shushisi River, a major tributary within the national park, for irrigation, in direct violation of the plan, with further plans to pipe its water to the coast for tourism development. Crude oil has spilled into the Vosa near the town of Posem, where 150 active oil wells line the river's middle stretch. Yeah, absolutely. So they're not too jazzed about this. Cutting ahead here a little bit. The threat to the Delta is part of a broader global crisis. Deltas are among the most biologically productive ecosystems on Earth, the place where fresh water and salt water mix to create conditions of great fertility. But many deltas have been relentlessly exploited, drained for agriculture, and built over ports and other infrastructure. A 2024 assessment of all 258 river deltas discharging into the Mediterranean found that no large delta, except those in Albania, still qualifies as relatively intact. So the delta is an integral part of the Wild River. This is what the founder of Lumi and winner of the 2025 Goldman Environmental Prize for her work to Project Vosa River told Mongabe. This is from Besiana Guri. Yep. Ecologically, you cannot divide them. Okay, so again, now we're talking about the leverage of this. The Flamingo Revolution shows no sign of losing momentum. The demonstrations have remained largely peaceful, drawing people of all ages, young couples, parents of children, elderly Albanians who lived through decades of communist rule. Again, communism sucks. United by something that rarely mobilized this society before. The movement has also attracted the attention of Albania's anti-corruption authority, SPOC, I think is what it's called, the independent prosecutorial body that has pursued high-profile corruption cases since its establishment in 2019, has opened a formal investigation into the project, examining not only environmental violations, but reportedly extending into questions of land ownership changes. The government decision made in 2024 that cleared the way for development in the protected area. The EU's position has sharpened significantly too. The European Commission has publicly and repeatedly warned Albania that it must terminate their strategic investments law that gives favored projects fast-track treatment, bypassing environmental safeguards. Failure to do so, the Commission made clear, would put Albania's path to EU membership at risk. I mean, there it is. So, again, the Flamingo Wars, as you might hear, the Flamingo Revolution, which could turn into a war. I don't think so. There's a lot of what you'll see if you go online and look up the Flamingo Revolution. A lot of people, and again, peaceful protests. They're not burning buildings. They're not flipping cars. They're not looting. They just want their voice to be heard by their government. And for some, it might be for the environmental reasons. Possibly. I think that a lot of it is just because it is Kushner. And it is Trump, and it's this whole situation. And even if it's not for the chokehold of the Adriatic, which I think there's a very strong case to be made here, even if it's not that, Albania doesn't want some sort of a U.S. interventionist situation to go down here. And I could see that being one of the only ways this goes down. And or the Trump family will donate this land to America, turn it into some sort of a colony situation or a territory, and then we'll just set up a military base on what is now our island, which could also be the case, but I don't see that as playing out well for our neighbors on the other side of the world. What are y'all's thoughts?
I'm happy to jump in here. I had
Please.
not really considered the environmentalist angle, but it seems like that's a significant one. I'm mostly hearing about this story from a political angle. Albania's population is mostly Muslim.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it got along very well with the Soviet Union for the earliest part of its existence. They got along with Stalin. They did not get along with Khrushchev. But as for religion, there's also some Christians there. Mother Teresa's from there. Her
Right.
real name is Agnes Ganja Boyagiu, as trivia for anyone who wants to know that.
Bless you for attempting to pronounce that. I don't think I would even made the stab at it, but hell yeah.
Oh yeah, their language has very little in common with other European languages.
Right.
By the way, and they got their own alphabet with 50 letters or something, but they
What?
mostly use Roman alphabet. Their
Okay.
traditional alphabet is totally different,
Wow.
but they mostly use Roman. Now, I'm getting a little distracted, but politically, they are very much tied in with the United States government. Middle-aged listeners like us might remember when we were kids, there was a lot of violence in Yugoslavia, including Albania in the post-Soviet period.
The Bosnian War.
And especially Kosovo.
Kosovo, yeah.
Was 1998, 99, I think.
Bosnia
And,
was
it was-
Algerians. Excuse me, I'm getting that mixed up. Yeah.
Well, the Bosnia situation was a few years earlier, and I don't know as much about that. But basically, Kosovo was carved out of Serbia to be a Muslim independent state that's very similar to Albania. Albania is considered a protector of Kosovo. And Albania is also pretty well aligned with not just America, but also Israel politically. But they got the same problem as a lot of the Gulf states, where the government of this country wants to get along with America and Israel, but the population, not so much, especially because the population is mostly Muslim. And by the way, there is a Soviet military base on this island that has not been used in a long time. So I don't remember if the article mentioned that, but it would be easy for the U.S. to just U.S. military or even Israeli military to set up shop there.
Why not
so
both?
That's, I think, what the people of Albania are most reacting against. I want to also mention what's been on Twitter a little bit. The president of Albania's name is Edi Rama, E-D-I Rama, and he posted a long thing ending with Albanian flag, a U.S. flag, a Qatari flag, a Saudi flag, a UAE flag, and let's see.
Not an Israeli flag,
here.
right?
The Israeli flag was actually in it.
Damn it.
Yeah,
God.
it was actually in it. Oh, I just have to scroll up.
Okay. I got to say, all the other nations you were listing, I'm like, oh, shit. This is just proving that. But no, he's showing his, because all the countries you just named are in a, I'll say, loose confederation, for lack of better words. You know, I mean, even these nations that are Muslim nations, they are friendly towards Israel. They may not be happy with them right now, but for business reasons, they put on a good face.
Yeah, Albania also wants to be part of the EU, I guess. I didn't know they already weren't a part, but
I thought they were too, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So anyway, this guy, Edi Rama, prime minister, he posts this long paragraph about how much he supports the people of Iran against their government and a whole bunch of other things, how Albania
against their
Jews
government.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this is another thing. You may have heard of something called Ashraf 3 or the MEK, Mujahideen Khalq, or the People's Mujahideen of Iran, led by a guy named Rajavi a long time ago. Now it's headed by Mariam Rajavi. And I think you guys had a guest on the show a month or two ago who was part of the Rajavi group. Anyway, they have a few hundred people in Albania because they're all exiled from Iran, obviously.
Sure.
And also Osama bin Laden lived in Iran in Albania for a while. And there were a lot of Al-Qaeda members in Albania. Crap,
yeah, he traveled.
I scrolled away from it. Now I can't find it anymore, but that's important.
No, it is. Osama bin Laden
Albania,
he was definitely in Albania, at least for a time. Hell, he was in Egypt for a time. He bounced around, family money and shit.
Yeah, back in 1998. But anyway, Edi Rama posts this thing. He only gets 500 likes, 500 comments, then he shuts off comments. And people with gray check marks aren't supposed to be able to do that. But all the comments are, "You're nothing but an Epstein class candidate. You should be ashamed." Da, 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 da. A lot of Israel stuff, some MEK stuff. There's a picture of him on the Wailing Wall. Who knows if that's AI? You can never believe anything anymore, but it might be real.
Maybe.
Anyway, this kind of explains the whole situation and why he might be thrown out and why the protests are so big. It's because it's a Muslim country and their leader is more aligned with the United States and Israel, and the majority of the population does not like it. And this is their flashpoint to somehow kick him out of the office.
I mean, we'll see if it works. We will see if it works. I mean, especially with the fact that the Albanian, now I'm getting them fucking mixed up here. The Albanian president posting these things. Listen, for against Iran, fine, whatever. The people, and I don't know what type of Muslim they are that live there. I would assume Shiite. I don't know that.
They're Sunni.
Oh, I'm sorry. I get those confused.
Let me confirm that.
Yeah.
But
go ahead. I'm confused. Iran is the Shia majority. All the rest are Sunni majority, right?
Correct. Iraq is 60% Shia. Iran is something like 90 or 95% Shia.
I get those two.
Lebanon is maybe like 20, 30%. There's a few Shia everywhere else, but majority wise in the world, it's like 70, 80% Sunni.
Okay. And then of the types of Sunni Muslims that live there, based off of the protests, I would assume this is not a country that holds true to like deep Sharia law or anything. I didn't see one hijab. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
It says they're Hanafi. Hanafi is also the same. They're the same version of Sunniism as Pakistan.
Interesting. So a lot more of the progressive or liberal type of Islamic.
I guess so. I don't know for sure. All I know is Hanafi is Pakistan, and then Afghan is something different.
The only
Pakistanis
reason
and Afghans don't like each other, and they've been killing each other in a little bit recently.
The only reason I'm saying that about Albania is because I look back at the picture of the protests, and you can see these videos. These are women walking around in leggings and tank tops, and not a single hijab in sight. That's why I'm saying they seem to be, at least on the surface, a little bit more of the more liberal, progressive, modernist style of Muslim, not like Saudi Arabia or Iran with different versions.
Yeah, they're not Wahhabi,
right?
Or Salafi.
So
those are known for being stricter. Hanafism is predominant in South Asia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Turkey, the Balkans, regions historically influenced by the Ottoman and Mughal empires.
Okay. Fair enough. So, yes, I could see that being twofold. For one, although they may want to be, and by they I mean the people, the president does not speak for the people, obviously, but the people might want to have a tie with America in some way, shape, or form. I don't think they're too jazzed about selling a very key strategic location to the United States or anybody from the United States or Israel, and especially not somebody like this. This situation is very much not in line with the Albanian population. So
yeah, especially not Jews.
Right.
They really didn't like the Russians for a while, and that's why they were kind of a useful pawn against the Russians in the 90s, and what kind of solidified their elite ruling class's relationships with the United States. But that's getting more and more strange now. Little like Turkey, historic enemy of Russia forever.
Yeah.
But now more, trying to be as middle of the road as possible.
Well, I mean, Albania, if I'm not mistaken, is a former Soviet satellite state. And most former Soviet satellite states do not like communism and do not fuck with Russia. So, I mean, historically speaking, that makes sense. If there's people that are alive today that can remember communist rule over their nation, it's not going to be something that they look back on fondly. So it's also very possible that the people are speaking up and saying like, no, we don't want to tie in with certain groups who have obvious ties to other shit that's going on. We want to do us. So, this all checks out. And the fact there's a former Soviet base on that island that still blows my mind. On two parts. Number one, the fact that the naturalist group, the ones that are trying to preserve the nature and preserve the beachhead and all these things, there's a Soviet base on this island. I have a hard time believing that the Soviets gave a fuck about the environment when they built it. But okay, fine. It's old. It's run down. I don't know. I haven't seen any pictures of the Russian base from back in the day. I don't know if it's just dilapidated buildings and it's more of a tourist attraction thing at this point, or if there's some kind of like good bones that are still there. I know at least all of the underground bunkers, those are at least still structurally intact. So it's possible those could be revitalized and retooled. On the other hand, if they have to make some sort of a claim to make this not go down, calling in the fact that y'all got certified from UNESCO as a spot that can't be fucked with, that might go over. That actually might be a pretty strong angle that they could use to prevent the purchase of and the building of, the island and resort situation. So I don't know. And we'll see how far this Flamingo Revolution actually gets. Will it lead to some sort of a crazy overthrow of the government? Will it lead to Rama stepping down? I actually don't believe so, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe because they keep gaining more and more people by the day. So who's to say if that's not going to lead to something big happening here? I don't know. But all this being said, I think we are kind of getting ready to wrap up this episode. We covered a lot. We went all over the place this episode, and there was a few more things I could have pulled up. As far as some things going on within the United States and some companies that are making some big moves right now. But there was enough going on the world stage that I felt like we needed to talk about. So I think we did our justice on this one. Once again, for anybody listening to this on the Spotify, on the Apple Podcast, or watching this on YouTube, because these are all being aired on YouTube now as well, if you want to support your boy and also come be a part of the conversation every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Central, link in the description below, patreon.com/Cajun Knight. There's only one tier for entry. and there's no real private chat or anything like that going on with it. This is basically just to be a part of the community, to meet up and have your opinion thrown out there, and bring articles to the table that you think would be fun to kind of dissect together with the group. So I hope to see y'all there next week. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up one thing from last night. We were talking about Andinia, this proposed Jewish colony in Argentina. I did more digging, and I got to say, I don't think it's a real thing. Or if it's real, they've done a real good job hiding it.
Okay.
But also, I found a story from a place called MASH, a hacker group claiming they hacked into the Ukrainian government and found 2.4 million casualties. I think there's probably a lot of duplicates and only like minor injuries, and it's probably exaggerated, but probably in the right ballpark, in my opinion. They are continuing to slowly lose territory, and they're probably going to continue to slowly lose it for another year or more. So, I was betting it would be over this year, and I was wrong. Now I'm thinking, I just don't know. I bet it'll be at least another year. And I just wanted to get that out there.
No, I would agree with that statement. I do feel like the numbers that we have gotten, regardless of what the source is, are going to be wrong, because what they classify as a casualty runs a wide gambit, honestly. I try to look for battlefield deaths, but even that is just slathered with controversy, and you can never find true numbers on either side. I don't know what to call it. I tried looking into a Ukrainian-Russian update. As far as the lines going, I can't see any kind of drastic pushes one way or another. There's so many YouTube videos that are saying that Putin just, hit Ukraine with the deadliest blow yet. And then there's so many saying that Ukraine just did irreparable damage. Russia's getting ready to capitulate any second now. Like, there's so much in the media space towards the situation that, honestly, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, not out of lack of potentially, the military might or the ability to end it. I feel like this is all a part of the bigger scheme, because for the longest time, everybody believed that Russia was like the only big, the big kid on the block aside from the United States. This has proven that A, that's not true, and B, especially not after this. If they were to call a peace treaty tonight, like as we are recording, somehow Zelensky and Putin say, fuck it, dude, we're done with this, and sign a peace treaty, how long realistically would it take for Russia to build back their military to what it once was prior to the invasion, right? And Ukraine, the same thing. And all of these nations, ourselves included, that have sent so much ordnance and military aid towards Ukraine, and how many people have tried to support Russia in their regard, all that. This is going to take a while just to catch our breath after this. And I think that that's the point. I think they want to weaken everybody across the board. And the only way to do that is to get everybody involved in these conflicts, especially now. Well, the actual powers that be around the world. I don't think it's the presidents. I think that, that's why I run the conspiracy show. I mean, like the global cabal of they, man. Obviously the gypsies is what I'm saying, Tony. Okay. But anyway. So anyway, I appreciate everybody for joining me this evening. We will talk about this and so much more on the next episode. Hopefully see y'all there next Wednesday, to all the listeners and everything. As always, I am the Cajun Knight, and God bless.